Hey, this is Bryan.
And Shelby.
And you're listening to the Hyperspace
Pod Blast. Aren't you a little short for a podcast?
Huh? Tonight on Hyperspace Pod Blast, it's Star Wars Rebels Season 4 Part 2 and beyond with our extra special guest, Matt Livengood.
Hey guys.
Okay.
Wow. Not excited at all.
Well, I can't follow that up.
Who can, really? That's everyone. I know. Shut up. So yeah, Rebels Season 4 Part 2. It was short and bittersweet, sort of. Somewhat sweet, somewhat cloyingly sour, I thought. But we'll get into it. So since you're the guest, Matt, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts, impressions of how the first post-Disney animated series wrapped up?
I enjoyed it. I really liked, especially the actual ending, like the last few minutes. I kind of like how they put a little bow on it. And I like the idea that Ahsoka went and did some other stuff, so she's still around, and she actually went out and did other things from when we last saw her. But yeah, I overall enjoyed it. What about you guys?
Go ahead, Bryan.
I overall enjoyed it, but I have a lot of nitpicky things with parts of it. I did, like you said, I liked how they forwarded it and kind of gave you like, oh, hey, this is why you don't see them in the original trilogy, guys, because they stayed on Lothal. Like, I thought that was cool. I'm a sucker for those old 80s, early 90s style movies where you get the little thing you read about each character at the end.
Yeah.
I thought it kind of had that feel to it, so I liked that.
Definitely.
And I don't know though about some specifics. I think they kind of did Thrawn dirty. I honestly think I would have rather him get stabbed than end up in the graps of a space whale squid and launched into hyperspace. That was kind of weird. And yeah, I don't know. I thought the force portals thing was forced. Sorry,
always trying to make a joke.
On one hand, it reminds me, I mean, obviously because it's tied to Mortis, it reminds me of Mortis and the way I feel about Mortis. On one hand, it's fun to talk about because it's so open-ended. You're like, what is this? But on the other hand, you're like, what even is this? What did I just watch? What is this?
Right.
So
and I think I have a lot of the same nitpicky things that you do. And I think it all stems from that episode in Clone Wars with Mortis, like the Loth wolves and the hyperspace whales. That stuff's cool, I think, in like a weird broad concept. But I think actually putting it in the show and making it such an integral part of how it ended, and especially the whole last season. I don't know. That's the only stuff that I don't really care for.
Well, and the thing with me is it's kind of like the whole Force part of Return of the Jedi. It's really awesome, and I love it, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like, if Luke turns to the dark side and joins the Emperor, Lando still blows up the Death Star. Right. So, if all this Force stuff happens in Rebels, at the end of the day, really what saves them is the Purgles. It has nothing to do with the portals or Ahsoka being there or any of that stuff. Like, it's really inconsequential as far as the whole arc of the story goes. What do you think, Shelbs?
That's an interesting point. I overall really enjoyed it. I think that it's really good, as you've said, that they wrapped a lot of stuff up. And you're not just left really, truly wondering of the fate of a lot of these characters, because that would be really strange to not know what was going on in the original trilogy time.
Right.
I think that was a big, that
was good.
Looming question mark that they kind of just stamped away really nicely.
Mm-hmm. I think that the dialogue was a little bit lacking in this last season in comparison to some other seasons. And I think just some of the execution was strange for me, but I liked a lot of the concepts.
Yeah, I think we all kind of feel the same way there. It has interesting open-ended mythology ideas, but the execution was kind of cornbally.
Right.
A little bit. Which, I mean, like, it's a kid's show, so, like...
Right, and I mean...
What do you expect? And
I
that's
expect
okay.
a lot more, honestly, especially when you think of how good some kid shows are. Like, I'm going to bring Adventure Time in as an example. There's a lot of corny stuff in that, but it's part of the universe. But they still deal with some pretty heavy stuff, and there's nothing that feels like they do it just because. And I feel like a lot of things in Rebels, especially toward the end, or really after season 1, they started doing a lot of things just because.
Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting to step back and compare it to other kids' shows. That's a good perspective.
Yeah, and there's unfortunately a lot of really cheeseball-y kid shows, and unfortunately I think especially in American television, we take what kids can actually consume and understand for granted, and we throw fart jokes at them and stuff. And we're like,
Right.
yeah, kids will like it.
Well, that's what I think, speaking of Adventure Time, I think that's what they do really well is they can appeal to a wide audience and without really neglecting a certain part of it. So, like, you know, a kid can enjoy that show, and it is goofy, and the jokes are, like, silly and stuff, but then they also do have some pretty high concept stuff going on in the background that kids just kind of go, and then move on to the next thing. But then, you know, there are whole subreddits about certain parts of certain episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
And people, you know what I mean?
And things like the snail waving, you know?
Yes.
Little things that kids aren't going to pick up on. But yeah.
And you could say the same about Gravity Falls.
Oh, yeah, Gravity Falls. And that was on Disney XD, too, which is another, like, that's a very parallel example to make. And that show was, I think, one of the best things that I've seen kid-related, aside from Adventure Time, for a long time.
So, what was your favorite moment from the second part of season 4, and what was your least favorite part, Matt?
I really liked the part where we last see Kanan. I personally thought that was handled really well, and I kind of thought that was the kind of thing that was going to happen to everybody. I thought it was interesting that they just chose, you know, just him. But you know, he went out like a hero, and I thought that was really nice. I also liked all the little tidbits this last part of the season where they were connecting things to like Rogue One and Episode 4. You know, like the TIE Defender, and they mentioned Project Stardust and like all of the little Easter egg stuff I really liked. As far as my least favorite part, I would have to say the World Between Worlds part, just because we've talked about this at great length already, but is it time travel? Is that what happened? Or I don't really know. That was one of those things that's just like, it's too weird for me. I didn't enjoy it. It's too weird.
Yeah, that's, again, like anything tied to that whole Mortis thing, it's so neat, and it would be awesome if it was in an IP that wasn't Star Wars.
Right.
It's just, it's a square peg that they are like jackhammering into that round hole, man. They're like, this is gonna fit. We're gonna make it fit. That's my opinion anyway. Obviously, a lot of people liked it, so good for them.
Right, exactly. And that's what's really great about Star Wars, as we even talked about in our last episode. You can like things that other people don't like, and that's okay. And there's so much content in Star Wars now that you're gonna dislike some things and you're gonna really like others that people don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's so all over the place too. Like, for a while in the old EU, it was very rinse and repeat. So, you know, if you like Star Wars, then you can just keep liking Star Wars because it's all basically the same. And then they open things up with the Yuzhong Vong, and they've done things with, you know, like we've said, Mortis and the World Between Worlds, and, you know, force space whales and all kinds of craziness. And for some people, it's like, it's too far. For other people, they're like, I love it, bring me more. Tolkien my Star Wars up. I love it.
and it's also important to realize that, like, when someone criticizes something that you like, they're not criticizing you, they're criticizing the content itself. Right.
Yeah, a lot of fans, like, they love what they love, and sometimes they do get kind of offended when you, not even when you just don't like something, but when you mock something they like. And, you know, they're not doing it to hurt you. They just don't like it. And let it roll off you, man. Keep liking what you like.
So what are your answers to this question, Bryan? What was your favorite and least favorite part?
My favorite part was probably, I think, like we said, the way that it ended with the fast forward, here's what happened. I liked that they made an effort to tie that up rather than just leaving it out there and being like, well, I don't know, they just weren't involved. Who cares? Like, we all care. We all do. That's who. But yeah, I think that was, and I've seen a lot of pushback from that where people didn't like it. So I don't know if they just wanted the story to continue and that's why they didn't like it. They didn't like that whole, we skipped several years of these people's lives, but I thought that was a nice little ending. I have so many oh, I'm so mean to Rebels. My ultimate least favorite part, I think, is the whole world between worlds, but specifically bringing Ahsoka back, because I think they did a really good job of bringing her back into Star Wars with her being fulcrum, and they gave her a really nice ending to her story. And then they literally pulled her out of her nice ending and gave her this, hashtag Ahsoka lives revival thing. And I don't know, it felt forced, it felt fan servicey, it felt like Filoni just not being able to let go of his character. It just didn't feel right to me.
Yeah, I almost feel like she got jacked of a really good way to go out.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, she had a
great ending.
Well, and the ironic thing is he pulls her out so she can tell him not to do it to Kanan.
Yeah, that's yeah.
Why couldn't he have learned this lesson?
Well, she's telling him it's his moment. This is his moment.
Right.
It's like, well, that was your moment.
Exactly. Right, exactly.
I mean, you even see Ahsoka walking away after that battle. So it's like they didn't even need to do any of that for you to know that she survived.
True, yeah. And to be honest, though, I like what he said at one of the celebrations where one of their ideas was, like, Vader obviously kills her. Like, she does the move where she knocks the piece of his helmet off, but at the same time, he stabs her. So it's like she finds out, she gets the big reveal, but then he also gets his, like, vindication, his, minor Obi-Wan redemption moment.
Right.
And I thought that would have been fantastic, but obviously they went a completely different way.
Yeah.
I'm curious if they have plans for her in the future.
Oh, I would bet like everything I own on that. Absolutely. All right. Last but not least, what do you think?
I think my favorite part would also be the way that Kanan went out. I liked it, but on the flip side, my least favorite part was the way that they did Arinda and having her say, yeah, blow up the fuel cell, because that just doesn't feel like her at all. I just don't think that she would be that dumb based on what I've read about her in the Thrawn novel. It doesn't feel like she would be that dumb, and it also doesn't feel like she would actually believe that she could cover it up with a parade. Because she's smarter than that. She's so much smarter than that. And honestly, from the Arinda that I read in the book, she would have just killed all of
the people around
her and said that the rebels did it.
Yeah, or that it wasn't her command. One of their someone. Honestly, I think she would have said the tank driver did it on a whim, and I took care of him for it.
Yeah, I feel like she would be so much more cold-blooded. Maybe it's because it's Rebels that they didn't do that.
Right, exactly. I think sometimes we do have that limitation of the kids series, and I understand that. But
we had Callus do terrible things.
Well, and they decapitated the two ingrates in season 1. And they didn't show it, but you know what happens. Yeah, exactly. They've done similar things, so it's weird to me. And I don't know. What do you think, Matt? Because you didn't read Thrawn, right?
No, I didn't.
So was that Arinda thing weird to you, or was that just kind of whatever?
The parade part is what I thought was weird, because even as somebody who I only know Thrawn from this series, he's obviously a very smart individual. I didn't, even when she explained what she was going to do, I was like, I don't think he's going to fall for that. And he didn't. Yeah. So
what do you think about Arinda, though? Seems, like, what is your impression of her?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I thought up to that point, she was pretty, like, she was a badass. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I think I agree with you there. Like that whole situation was very like out of character for her.
Yeah, and I think it's made even worse, like you said, from the way that she's characterized in the novel.
She turns in her best friends.
Yeah, like she's cold, except for when she like does things to save her parents, which is actually felt kind of out of character in the novel, but that's a whole different discussion. It's strange as a greater Star Wars thing how you have so many voices creating things for similar characters, or the same characters, I guess, actually, that kind of turn them into like strangely many-faceted characters. But the problem comes in when there's not much time difference between this character being written this way and then them doing something else, and like, what happened in their life in those 2 months between these two things that made them act so weird.
The character difference with Luke is believable, how much time is in between.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
The character difference here, I feel like, is so short. It's like, really?
Yeah. And I mean, geez, people are mad that a guy changed fairly drastically in 30 years, but imagine how mad they'd be that someone changed in a matter of less than a year if they really thought about it. Or maybe they just don't care because, they're not Luke Skywalker. So.
Yeah. It's a random price. Doesn't matter.
True. All right. So now that it's all over, what do you think of the series as a whole? And here's the big money question: how does it compare with the Clone Wars series? And we'll start with you, Matt, because Matt is actually the one that made me watch Clone Wars, because I saw the Clone Wars movie and I was like, this is dumb, and then I didn't watch it.
And I said, it gets better.
He said it for years. I think
Yes.
I started watching again when Maul came back. That's how long I waited.
Yeah, I mean, I still think Clone Wars is better, in my opinion. I'm also a sucker for all the clones and all their backstories and the little ventures that they did with those guys. So I still enjoy that more. But as a whole, I think it was nice to see some new characters.
Mm-hmm.
The first episode, I felt kind of overwhelmed as a fan, because I was just like, oh my gosh, who's that? What's he doing? What's her name? Why is she there? So it was cool to have some new characters. But I think now that it's over, I hope if they do, I mean, obviously they're going to do more animations,
right.
But I hope the next one they do, I hope it's new characters again.
Mm-hmm.
I hope it's not, like we talked about, I hope it's not the Ahsoka show. And I kind of would like them to do something not connected to the movies, where maybe it's some other planet that we've never seen, and maybe not even have anything to do with the Jedi. I don't know. I think that could be interesting. I think just like the Old Republic, I think there's lots of stories that could be told that don't necessarily have to be stuck between the films. That they could really do some original stuff without having to worry so much about it connecting.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm 100% all in for that. Like you said initially, the whole idea of not having Jedi involved, I was kind of hoping that's what Rebels was going to be to begin with. And then when they made the addition of Kanan, the sort of lost Padawan kind of Jedi outlaw, I was like, okay, this is rad. Like, I'm all in for this.
Yeah.
But then as they started going on, it became very much, I don't know, at least a 50-50 Rebels Force-centric show. And it kind of lost me there as far as the track I thought they were going on. Because, as I've said before, and I maintain, Season 1 is my favorite by a long shot from Rebels. And I kind of think that my favor toward the show in general goes downhill because it detracted from that sort of idea of what I thought they were going to do going forward, like when they made it Clone Wars Light in Season 2. Just kidding, kind of.
Right.
I mean, overall, I think that it's a really good series. I haven't watched all of the Clone Wars. I've only watched bits and pieces. And frankly, I like it better than Clone Wars, just because it feels kind of more structured. And the idea of kind of jumping around so much with different storylines isn't that appealing to me as a viewer. But I'd say that overall, Rebels is a really good show. And it's a great way to dive deeper into some of these characters that you don't see in the movies all the time. So you get that difference between that and between Rebels and Clone Wars. And I really appreciate Sabine and how she developed throughout the whole series. It's an awesome show to get kids into Star Wars.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And I think to touch on what you said about not being attached to anything of the movies, for the first series, they obviously had to have those connections to make it work. They can't come out of the gate and be like, here's a brand new Star Wars that has nothing to do with any other Star Wars. People would have been like, what? But
right.
Yeah, I think, again, Matt is just hitting all the high notes, I guess. The new characters was a great idea. And I'd like to see something now that we're so deep into this new Disney era of Star Wars start really going away from what we know, but not in a world between worlds kind of way.
Right.
And I guess as far as it compares to Clone Wars, for me, I think Clone Wars overall I like better, but there's some episodes of Rebels that I like more than any other episode of Clone Wars. So
okay. That's
the
an interesting
series as a
perspective.
whole, as Clone Wars is better, there's higher highlights in Rebels. How about that? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. I think we have time for about one more question. So, what do you expect from Star Wars animation going forward, Matt?
New stuff. That's what I want. I want new stories with new characters, not connected to the original trilogy. Even if they did stuff that's more connected to the new trilogy, like show that Clone Wars all took place between 2 and 3. If they did one between 8 and 9, I don't know what happens in 9, but
You don't?
that could be interesting. No. Do you?
No idea.
So I think that would be really interesting. Yeah, and I think it would be cool to see something with a little bit of a different art style.
Oh God, yes.
Because I know that
Anime,
I know
please.
that that would be amazing.
Yes.
Something more like Samurai Jack, I think would be.
Oh, I would love that. Yeah, if they went back to
really
that,
cool.
Because he did that.
2D animation.
Yeah, he did that original Clone Wars series. The same guy that.
Right.
Then yeah, I would be into that. I like the animation in the Forces of Destiny, but it's a little too under processed. Maybe I don't know. I don't know much about art, so I'm probably using all the wrong words. But I like it for shorts. But an art style like that for a full length animated show I don't think would work for me. But yeah, definitely something different. I'm definitely over this 3D stuff.
That's why I didn't even really want to start watching Rebels or Clone Wars, because I really don't like that animation style.
Right.
So we need something new. In my opinion, we need something new. That's what I want to see, and I want to see something that definitely focuses on new characters, and it can even be just regular people in the galaxy during a time of galactic war that aren't part of either side. They're just trying to exist.
That would be cool.
Yeah, I would be into seeing like the daily struggle of the regular person. But I think like what Matt said, something between 8 and 9, especially if we have the presumed time jump, something that bridges that gap would be really awesome. Though I have a feeling that might be something they're doing live action wise. But who knows? Could be anything. But I would bet everything I have it's going to be Ahsoka, especially if Dave Filoni's still involved.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, let's be honest. If Blade Runner was real and Dave Filoni had his own joy, it would be Ahsoka.
Yeah.
And,
Probs.
And so
true.
would about like 60% of Star Wars fans. But whatever.
Yeah, if you like Ahsoka, that's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, you've got to be stoked right now if you're an Ahsoka fan. Like,
Right?
You've got to be through the roof.
That's great.
Especially because what they've set up is kind of this Ahsoka Sabine going to find the Lost Boy situation.
And guess who's with him?
Yeah.
That's
really the show I want. I want the Ezra and Thrawn odd couple show.
That would be hilarious.
And the Purgle becomes their weird pet, and they just gallivant through who knows what. No, I don't really want that at all.
I mean, I was
kidding,
very
but-
afraid that Thrawn was gonna die.
Yeah,
And
he
now I
didn't
feel
die.
like he didn't die, and I have a feeling that I don't know what's gonna happen with Thrawn.
What if they just came back and Ezra was just like the new Rook, because Thrawn just like
just like whipped him.
just like brought him down to the point to where he was like, you know what, Thrawn, everything you're saying makes a lot of sense.
That would be that would be really cool. I'm kind of digging this whole idea.
I'm going to marinate on that for a little while. Again, thanks so much, Matt, for coming on the show again and talking about Rebels.
Anytime.
All right, yeah, for sure. Thanks for coming. Always good to talk to you. Always good to get that perspective for someone who's not ingrained in fandom. You know what I mean? Like in our way of being involved in Star Wars Twitter and being podcasters and all that. Yeah.
And just in general, not reading.
Yeah, because you can't, but that's the whole
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's a lifelong struggle.
You can always find us at hyperspace_pod on Twitter.
Email us at hyperspacepodblast@gmail.com.
Or check out our website, hyperspacepodblast.com.
So thanks for listening. We'll talk to you all next week.
All right, talk to you later. Bye, Matt.
Bye.
Bye.